All right, we're about to get into the wild story of a guy who basically shot to the very top of the car world, only to crash and burn in like the most spectacular way you can imagine. We're talking about John DeLorean. And believe me, it's a story of pure genius, massive ambition, and, well, one very unforgettable car. Oh yeah, you know this car. You've definitely seen it hit 88 miles per hour in Back to the Future. It's an absolute icon, right? But the story of the man who bet everything on it, honestly, it might be even more wild than the whole time-traveling thing. So, let's get right into it. I mean, we're talking about a story that has it all. A rebel executive, a total visionary when it came to car design, and yeah, a guy who got tangled up with an FBI sting. So this isn't just about a cool-looking car. No. This is a full-on Hollywood drama, playing out in real life, from the stuffy boardrooms of Detroit to splashy headlines all over the globe. Okay, so where does a story like this even start? Well, before John DeLorean became famous for, let's just say, all the wrong reasons, he was the absolute golden boy at General Motors. And back then, GM wasn't just a car company, it was the biggest car company on the planet. And, he came from pretty humble beginnings, right there in Detroit. He was the son of immigrants, but man, was he brilliant. We're talking about a kid who went to a special high school just for honor students, served his country for 3 years in World War II, and then came back and just started collecting degrees. He got a master's in automotive engineering and an MBA. I mean, the guy was practically built for success.
And succeed? Oh, he absolutely did. At GM's Pontiac division, he was the guy, the driving force behind the GTO. Think about that. He basically created the entire American muscle car category. He took this kind of sleepy brand and turned it into a performance powerhouse. He wasn't just some smart engineer, the man was a marketing genius.
And his rise, it was just meteoric. At only 40 years old, he became the youngest division head in the entire history of General Motors. You have to understand, in the super rigid, buttoned-up world of 1960s corporate America, this just didn't happen. It was completely unheard of. The guy was a true rock star.
And yeah, he definitely didn't act like the other execs. I mean, you had all these guys in their conservative three-piece suits, and then there's DeLorean, rocking long sideburns, shirts unbuttoned, and he's hanging out with huge celebrities like Sammy Davis Jr. and Johnny Carson. He was a total maverick in a company that was all about conformity.
But here's the thing. Being this hotshot executive at the biggest car company in the world, well, it wasn't enough for him. See, DeLorean had this vision, this dream that was just too big for GM to handle. So in 1973, he did the unthinkable. He walked away from it all to chase that dream. And this quote from him really gets to the heart of it. He said, "A car should make people's eyes light up when they step into the showroom. Rebates are merely a way of convincing customers to buy bland cars they're not interested in." You can just feel his frustration, right? He saw GM as this slow, boring giant, just cranking out bland cars and using cheap tricks to sell them. He wanted to build something that people would actually get excited about.
So what does he do? He goes out and starts the DeLorean Motor Company, DMC. He used his fame, his connections, everything he had to try and build his own car empire completely from scratch. And it was all built around this one, single, radical idea for a brand new sports car. And what a car it was supposed to be. Get this, a body made of stainless steel, so it wouldn't even need paint or rust. It had those now iconic gull-wing doors that opened up to the sky, and the body itself was designed by Giorgetto Giugiaro, an absolute legend in Italian car design. It looked like nothing, and I mean nothing, else on the road. It really did look like a car straight out of the future.
Now, to actually build this car, he made an unbelievably huge gamble. He somehow convinced the British government to give him a ton of money. We're talking £100 million to build a giant factory in Dunmurry, Northern Ireland. Now, at the time, this was an area just torn apart by political violence. But his promise was jobs, over 2,000 of them, in a place that was just desperate for any good news. The stakes here, they could not have been higher.
But of course, this is where the dream starts to fall apart. You know, that road from a brilliant idea to a successful company, it's just full of potential failures. And John DeLorean's journey was about to hit a massive brick wall. I mean, it was like everything that could go wrong did. The car had huge production delays. Then, when it finally launched in early '81, the US economy was in a major recession. And on top of all that, the reviews started coming in. And they were lukewarm. People loved the futuristic look, but they said for a sports car with that kind of price tag, it just didn't have enough horsepower. So as you can imagine, the money situation quickly became a complete catastrophe. By February of 1982, the company was drowning, and I mean drowning, in $175 million of debt. Now, they had actually managed to build the cars. About 7,000 of them had rolled off the line in that brand new, state-of-the-art factory. So the dream was real. It was being produced. But there was one tiny problem. Nobody was buying them. More than half of all the cars they built were just sitting there, unsold. Meanwhile, the company was burning through cash like crazy. The dream wasn't just in trouble, it was collapsing right before his eyes.
And this is where the story takes a sharp turn. It goes from being a sad business failure to a full-blown Hollywood thriller. Because John DeLorean, desperate to save his company, was about to make a choice that would absolutely destroy him.
On October 19, 1982, the headlines were just unbelievable. John DeLorean, the car genius, was arrested and charged with trafficking cocaine. We're talking a deal worth $24 million, all part of an FBI sting operation. The accusation? That he was trying to use drug money to save his company. It was the ultimate, most shocking fall from grace imaginable.
So when this went to trial, his entire defense came down to one word: entrapment. Basically, his lawyers argued that he was set up. They said a government informant, who happened to be an old neighbor of his, was the one who came up with the whole idea and basically lured DeLorean, a man who was financially desperate, into a crime he never would have even considered on his own.
And you know what? The jury bought it. In August 1984, John DeLorean was found not guilty of all charges. But it wasn't really a victory. The trial had dragged on for 2 whole years. By the time he was acquitted, the DeLorean Motor Company was bankrupt and long gone, and his reputation? Completely destroyed.
It's perfectly summed up by what he said right after the acquittal. A reporter asked him if he'd ever get back in the car business, and he just looked at them and said, "Would you buy a used car from me?" He knew. He knew that even though he won the case, his credibility was shot forever.
And then, just 1 year later, in what has to be one of history's greatest ironies, the car that represented his spectacular failure became the time machine in the 1985 blockbuster Back to the Future. The DeLorean became an absolute pop culture legend, achieving a kind of fame in a movie that it could never, ever find in the real world. So what do we make of all this? What's the final verdict on John DeLorean? Was he a brilliant visionary who was just crushed by bad timing and a government setup? Or was he a reckless showman whose ego just got way too big? In the end, I think the story is as complicated and as fascinating as the man himself. What do you think?